So we are going to take a new direction on the channel. We are looking at more gardening-based content now due to the huge feedback that we had from the trip to Bunnings. Massive. Everyone's just engaged with what's happening in our backyard. Elizabeth's done an amazing job with the place, and we now are creating an obstacle course. What happened to Cocoa Pots? Do they still exist? They're probably not vegan. They might be vegan, I don't know. Bentley's 58's arrived, as you saw in the other vlog. He's built it up. He's built it up himself. He's down in Melbourne, so he's filmed a little bit of stuff around building it up and some tips on putting the mechanical group set together. So, here's Bentley.
Ahoy, Bentley here, checking in for my 1 hour of outdoor time here in Melbourne due to lockdown, so I thought I'd bring you along and show you my new bike. Pretty exciting day. Mechanical shifting and also brakes as well, always going to take a little bit of bedding in, so generally find that take it for a few rides and then you're going to need to turn the barrel adjuster. So to do that, you just grab this little fella in here. And because it's all going to bed in, so it's going to effectively stretch. So that way you just need to turn the barrel adjuster about half a turn this way. So I've actually already done one of those turns on my ride, made the shifting a little bit better. I'm expecting maybe, hopefully it's going to be fine after this, but it might take 1 or 2 more rides, and then after that, no worries for the life of the cables. I have actually run Campy before a few years ago, and one thing I really do love about it is how you can dump a whole bunch of gears on the inside. There's about 4 clicks there and then about 4 or 5 clicks the other way on the shifter. Really good for crit racing. In Melbourne we have the teardrop, which for those of you who don't know it, you come into one slow corner, and with this you can just dump 4 or 5 gears in one go. Perfect for coming out of that corner. Nice small gear, and then you can slowly shift it back up as you're going up the hill. Really important with Campy is to set the front derailleur up right. So a little bit different to some other systems, it's actually got 4 clicks in the front derailleur, even though there's only 2 gears. So effectively this is how you trim it. So when you sweep across, go into big ring, and then you press the thumb shifter just a little bit and it will give you move it a slight way across. But this means that you can run all 12 gears on the back without having any rubbing on the front derailleur. I mean, it does take a little bit of getting used to compared to, for example, electronic systems, but once you got used to it, it's no worries at all, and you can just hear for it, and yeah, it works awesomely. It actually gives you a little bit more control than on electronic systems, because if it's not all set up perfectly, you can still just fine tune it with your thumb. Being mechanical, you have a few more cables to play with, but you can actually make it really neat. When I'm looking down the front of the bike here, you can see that all the cables are actually right in line with the front tube. So it should be really aero like that, compared to these more integrated setups that you get these days. I can already read the comments. You guys are going to be commenting on this bar tape. Party tape, yeah. Thought why not, it was on special at KWT, so life's too short to run black bar tape all the time. I'm sure I'll swap it back when racing goes back, but we're in lockdown. Who's going to judge me?
Obviously, like most of you guys, I've been back watching a lot of the pro stuff. This spate of crashing that we've seen, the Fabio Jakobsen one, Evenepoel, and then more concerningly, I think the Max Chapman one with the car coming across it. Anyway, so it was a really interesting narrative, because you saw people from one perspective sort of saying riders need to step up and have a collective voice, but then other people coming out and saying that no, it's more the team's responsibility to ensure rider safe, take more sort of emphasis on that kind of stuff. And you look at it and you go, who has the power to make change? And I don't know the answer to that question. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, maybe it's the governing bodies, or maybe it's the race organisers, or maybe it's the promoters, or maybe it's the commissaires. I have no idea. And I think this is the part of the problem. It's like, okay, let's say, for example, the riders strike. Well, that probably won't be any good because the team that stuffs the teams up. So the teams probably have to go find some other riders, some scab riders, and get them in because they've got commitments to sponsors. Do the sponsors have the power? Well, not really, because the sponsor's not going to have a say in what kind of riders you select or what races you target, or they're not going to have a say in the rider's safety on a descent with a car pulling out in front of you. Perfect example, right? Perfect example. And this is not having a go at anyone. This is just an example, okay? So at Sun Tour, the issues that we had around Sun Tour. Now, fantastic race, brilliantly run, but obviously the way the administration kind of worked, it was like, what collective voice did the team have? None. We just had to sort of do what we were told. And that would then trickle down to the riders. What collective voice do the riders have? None. Like, that's not a thing. Who has the power when it comes to cycling, the structure right now? Because I think that's a really good place to start. And if we start that chat, maybe then we can then talk about like how to actually progress things. Because I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer about who really runs our sport. All right, 3, 2, 1. I did. Carrie, what are you up to?
I'm doing this.
Nice.
Now that I'm looking back, I can see all the signs I tried to fill in the cracks that were spread in my mind, but I was all out of hope, lost in an endless maze. The emptiness had afforded just like a void, but you broke the coldness somehow and lit up a flame.
Bikes. So I've got some chat for you today, guys. Just quickly, so the route that I'm using today, I'll put it below. It's kind of one of my go-tos for like a during the day ride. If I want to do something that's not Centennial Park. Slightly convoluted, but once you sort of know it, like every turn is important, if you know what I mean. Like if you miss a turn, you pay for it with a red light or something. Yeah, I'll put it below. So yeah, we got out to Heffron on Saturday for another crit, and you're like, yeah, that's what you do now. But it was a really cool race. So it ended up, so Leo, Jesse and Jack Bennett, they ended up having a sprint, and it's really cool. It's a cool video actually, because the boys tried a bit of an impromptu lead out. If you kind of have a look at it, so the wind is to westerly, so Leo kind of leads it out on the left, tries to give Jesse the angle on the left gutter, which he does really well. Jesse does a good sprint, but fair to Jack, came around him on the line and took the win. So, but yeah, it was really cool. It's crazy, like you pull up their files or you just have a look at it and you see the heart rates the boys get to. For us old blokes, it's mind-blowing. Like, I almost saw a 2. That's all I'll say, right? It's just fantastic. It's just, yeah, next level, right? But speaking of that, so I came 4th, which is the new thing. 4th is now a thing, allegedly. You know, I've sort of shared a bit of my training with you, which has been that, or was for a period, that sort of, what do we call it, sub-threshold stuff. For crits is borderline irrelevant, so kind of had to flick that switch and go to the more super intense stuff. And I know I've sort of poo-pooed heart rate in the past, but you do look at it and you go, well, hang on, my heart rate hasn't been in that sort of zone for long periods of time. It's just a matter of now getting used to it, getting it back up there.
No. What are you doing? Yeah, just ride.
So I got a bit of tubeless chat for you, I reckon. I was listening to one of those podcasts, I think it was the Mick Stocker one, and he was chatting to the mechanic. And so they ran tubeless at Strata, but he was talking about some bit of tech allowed them, it was like a foam or something, that if they got a flat, instead of the tyre basically reacting like a normal tubeless or clincher where you really can't continue to ride it, it like gives you some sort of support to be able to ride on it for a bit. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about this. It would certainly be useful at our level. I've sort of come to the conclusion that, so I'll race at about 70 PSI and then I will train, like ride today, at 60. That 70 just feels that tiny bit faster, whereas I'm quite happy at 60. It's more comfortable at 60. That's kind of where my head's been at with it. I should mention the shoe situation. He's at it again. He's at it again. Just can't help himself, can he? So I've mentioned this in the comments a little bit, but I'm working a bike fitter in the States. We'll do something over the next month or two, specifically around different types of shoes. This balance between the full out performance, hard-nosed ones, like these Bonts, and the more luxurious fitting type, like the Rapha ones. So whilst I am talking about Rapha stuff, I see that they're actually available now. Like, I know like that price is outrageous for a pair of cycling equipment, but if you're into tech and if you're into the best, it's that. It's like a second skin. Lunchtime from the bar bag today. Little howdy, peanut butter, blueberry, wholemeal bread, 2 of these, bananas, whoop, some Performance in my bottles. I think that's it. I might have a bar or two in, I don't know, something else in there. You guys will sometimes see that I do run headphones a little bit. So these are the AirPod Pros. They've just had a firmware update which has really changed the transparency. So I've got them set at the moment to what they call transparency mode. I've got pretty good like audio awareness around me at the moment. So I'll run a podcast or the radio, mostly all spoken word stuff, just on endurance rides. And I'm normally very hesitant to do it, but I've got to say, yeah, sounds pretty good. So yeah, so with some of the racing, big on the boys running the cameras now. I know a lot of you have just sort of mentioned like a lot of it's been Sydney-centric, and that's the reason, just because getting the cameras, getting the footage is easier in Sydney. But mark my words, we're working on that. Cooper, Ben both have cameras now, so hopefully we'll get some South Australian and Queensland racing respectively. Man, some good stuff happening in both those states at the moment. Welcome to winter in Sydney. All right, it's going to be a long year, hey? I mentioned this a while back. How good is that? And now that it's in action, how good's that GCN Racing app? So for us here in Australia, game changer, because it's on demand. It's all the bike races that you never used to see unless you had Eurosport. But here's the thing, right? Well, you used to have Eurosport years ago, and so what you'd have to do is you have to record the race overnight. Fine, whatever. So let's say from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. What would always happen is you would get a Eurosport scheduling stitch up. So you'd be watching the recording, and then with like 7K to go, end of recording. So of course you'll learn to add the 20 minutes or record the program after. We're over at Jesse's pre-COVID thing watching, I think it was, what were we watching? On Loop? And he had a scheduling stitch up, and we're just like, mate, newbie, come on. But with GCN Racing, seriously though, I did mention in that video what's the next step for it being giving us options here in Australia to get our content on there. And when I say our content, I don't mean like this channel, but I mean like NRS racing, all that kind of stuff. Get that on GCN Racing. I mean, how good would that be for our sponsors to be in the same sort of like viewing panel, same user interface as like the Dauphin? Nice. Can I ask you a question? You come here. What do you call Dada now? Tell the camera what you call me.
Bloody man.
Calls me bloody man. Speaking of which, whoa, we're healing up. All right, we'll see you next week, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for all this gardening content that we're going to be churning out now. All right, see you soon.